Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you all. It is a profound honor and privilege for me to speak to you on this momentous event, being the 5th IBIA Africa Bunker and Shipping Conference, which has brought together industry professionals to discuss the latest developments, challenges, and opportunities in the bunker and shipping sectors. I regret that due to exigencies of duty, I am unable to join you in person as I would have loved to do. As we are all aware, international shipping steers the carriage of over 80% of all goods by volume, thus playing a crucial role in promoting economic and social development globally as a major source of employment and access to essential goods. The benefits aside, however, shipping is heavily reliant on fossil fuels for propulsion and operation, which fuels occasion emissions in the form of air pollutants and greenhouse gases, which occasion acid rain, respiratory diseases, and reduced life expectancy. Greenhouse gas emissions occasion adverse climate change also by trapping the heat from the sun, and are also catalysts for rising sea levels and ocean acidification. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, climate change is not only a pressing global environmental challenge, but it disproportionately affects developing and least developing countries, despite their historically lower contribution to its causes. It is not an overstatement to say that climate change impacts all aspects of life and accentuates challenges faced in Africa. Climate change is a threat multiplier, disrupting livelihoods and driving people into forced displacement and migration. Climate change intensifies scarcities of natural resources, which can drive violence and conflict, mounting pressure on government relations. Climate change also threatens the capacity of governments to protect its people, protect and promote security and welfare, and also advance development in a sustainable manner for the benefit of all. Action on current and future adverse impacts of climate change in Africa requires strengthening climate change-related institutions, laws, regulations, and policies in order to support mitigation, enhance adaptation, and most important, build resilience. These measures must emphasize the eradication of poverty and equality, which are crucial elements of sustainable development. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, maritime transport is crucial to Africa's economic development and international trade, as it provides the most efficient and cost-effective means of transporting goods to and from the continent. However, amongst the biggest challenges facing shipping is the transition to clean fuel and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in the continent's shipping and maritime sector. The 4th International Maritime Organization Greenhouse Gas Study of 2020 estimated that greenhouse gas emissions from shipping in 2018 accounted for some 2.89% of global anthropogenic GHG emissions. Maritime decarbonization, therefore, is an urgent global challenge, and Africa cannot afford to be left behind or must not be left behind. In July 2023, the IMO greenhouse gas strategy was revised, and it envisages the following very critical issues. Number one is the strengthening of the energy efficiency design requirement for ships. Number two, the reduction of CO2 emissions per transport work as an average across international shipping by at least 40% by 2030, and the uptake of zero or near zero greenhouse gas emission technologies, fuels, and or energy sources to represent at least 5%, striving, however, for 10% of the energy used by international shipping by 2030. And also greenhouse gas emissions from international shipping to reach net zero to peak greenhouse gas emissions from international shipping as soon as possible, and to reach net zero GHG emissions by or around or close to 2050, taking into account different national circumstances. Investment in low carbon shipping requires significant financial resources, which may not be available in many African countries due to limited access to finance on the continent, which has hindered the development of low carbon shipping so far. While the developed countries have advanced technology that can support low carbon shipping, the developing countries may not have access to this technology due to limited technology transfer between the two divides. Yet this is what would be a big boost to African countries in the transition to low carbon shipping. There is inadequate infrastructure to support the development and adoption of low carbon technology that enhances the transitioning to a greener future. And in this, we must recall that the shipping industry will not only be a consumer of green fuels, but also the main transporter of the clean fuels needed to power the industries back at home, be it the manufacturing sector, the energies required, and etc. So distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me not dwell on the gloomy side because it's not all doom and gloom, because the transition presents many, many opportunities for climate change mitigation and adaptation, including sustainable development and green growth. Africa is endowed with all the resources required to power green transformation. Hydro, geothermal, wind, and solar power potential is super abundant. The mineral resources needed by green energy technology also exist in plenty on the African continent. Thus, we have the opportunity to take part in the value chain of the production and distribution of zero and near zero greenhouse gas emission technologies, fuels, and energy sources for international shipping. We also have large tracts of land that can accommodate huge and expansive green investments such as solar farms, wind farms, among other alternative sources of energy. Moreover, the continent is endowed with a young population of vibrant and innovative, curious and tech-savvy, skilled, motivated, energetic, and capable workforce that is ready to contribute and play its role to the decarbonization agenda. To access these opportunities, however, African countries must adopt a country-driven approach based on and supported by multilateral regimes. And this approach should be based on domestic priorities, possibilities, and also capabilities. Policy interventions are essential for accelerating the transition to low carbon shipping in Africa. And therefore, governments must develop and implement policies and regulations that support sustainable maritime transport, as well as align their efforts with global initiatives. Policy measures that incentivize the adoption of low carbon shipping solutions, such as tax incentives and subsidies for fuel efficient vessels or alternative fuels, are a major imperative, because then they will help to create a more conducive environment for low carbon shipping, while also encouraging private sector investments in sustainable maritime transport. Governments must promote the development of green port infrastructure as well, because these initiatives can help reduce emissions from port activities, which account for a significant portion of the sector's carbon footprints. And here we are talking of things such as electrified cranes in port, as well as charging stations for electric vehicles. Green port infrastructure can also improve the efficiency and competitiveness of African ports, leading to reduced costs and improved services for shippers. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, the transition to low carbon shipping in Africa also requires the deployment of innovative and sustainable technologies that can reduce emissions while maintaining the sector's efficiencies and competitiveness. In this regard, Africa must leverage the opportunities presented by the fourth industrial revolution, such as artificial intelligence, the blockchain technology, and the Internet of Things, in order to improve the sustainability of the maritime transport systems. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, so far, the technology that holds the greatest promise for decarbonizing the shipping sector is the use of alternative fuels, for example, biofuels and hydrogen, which have been established to have lower carbon emissions than traditional fossil fuel and can be produced from renewable sources. Some African countries, and in this case, I want to single out Morocco, have already made strides in developing biofuels and hydrogen fuel cell technology for use in the maritime sector. Furthermore, the development of alternative fuels can create new economic opportunities for African populations. And this includes the development of the biofuels and the export of renewable energy technologies. The use of digital solutions to optimize shipping operations is another technology that can support the decarbonization of shipping in Africa. For instance, the single window systems, digital platforms that use real-time data analytics, all of which can help ship operators optimize their route planning, reduce fuel consumptions, and minimize emissions. Similarly, the use of automation technologies such as autonomous vessels and drones can be used to improve the safety and efficiency of shipping while reducing emissions. The transition we are talking about, however, must also consider the socio-economic dimensions of the challenge by being inclusive and equitable, taking into account the needs of local communities, workers, and small and medium-sized enterprises, that's the SMEs. Moreover, the transition must align with Africa's broader development goals, such as poverty eradication, job creation, and economic growth. And one way to ensure an inclusive transition to low carbon shipping is to promote the involvement of local communities and workers in the development and implementation of sustainable maritime transport solutions. And this can be achieved through capacity building, skills development, and knowledge transfer programs that empower local communities and workers to participate in the green economy. So as we have seen, the transition presents opportunities to create new employment opportunities in Africa, particularly in green industries, such as renewable energy and sustainable transport. However, the transition may also result in job losses in the fossil fuel dependent sectors, such as oil and gas, and therefore, as we develop policies, we must also develop measures that support the transition to green jobs, while also providing social protection for those affected by job losses. Retraining and reskilling, therefore, become key in remaining relevant to the new developments in the sector. Financing of the transition to low carbon shipping in Africa is a most critical enabler of sustainable maritime transport, because it can help to overcome the high upfront costs of deploying green technology and infrastructure. And therefore, African countries have an opportunity to leverage a range of financing mechanisms, such as public-private partnerships, climate funds, and green bonds, in order to support the transition that we all must undertake in shipping. In addition, it provides an opportunity for the international financing institutions, such as the World Bank and the African Development Bank, to come up with ways to assist providing financial and technical assistance to African countries to accelerate the transition to sustainable maritime transport. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, capacity building, policy support, pooling of expertise and information, and multi-stakeholder collaboration is an imperative on this journey. We must also have coordinated research, development, and technology demonstrations in order to create confidence in the performance, price, and availability of technology in order to support sound decision-making and strategic investments by the industry. And on this, I want to single out the MTCC Africa as one of the institutions that can be used to incubate some of these initiatives. We must also have coordinated, comprehensive, and dedicated technical cooperation, information sharing, and capacity building programs in order to support maritime decarbonization in the SIDs and the LDCs. And finally, innovative financing models in order to promote innovation and uptake of new technology, especially in the developing countries in Africa, and in particular, the SIDs and LDCs. Most important is the need to create awareness amongst the main stakeholders from top to bottom, as well as, most important, the general public. Allow me to conclude now by wishing you all fruitful deliberations today, and I am eager to learn from your African experience and also to take new inspirations as we work together to develop solutions for a sustainable maritime sector. I want to end it by thanking the International Bunker Industry Association for organizing this conference, and it is my hope that I will be able to join you in person during the next IBIA conference. Thank you all. Have a good day.